Good evening, everyone. It is so great to see you tonight here on this edition of College Journey Conversations. We have an extremely special guest with us tonight, a dear friend of mine, Margarette Coleman with Everyday Manners. Margaret, how are you tonight?
I'm great. Thank you for asking, Mark, and thank you for having me here.
Oh, I'm so excited and I'm so looking forward tonight. I have all day and looking forward to our conversation because it's so applicable to our young people. And even, just between you and me, some of our adults could use this too. So I'm pretty excited about this. But without further ado, I want to give you an opportunity to kind of share just a little bit about who you are and a little bit about what you do and kind of share with our audience that information for us. Take a few minutes and share with us.
Okay, who am I? Margaret Coleman, and I'll give you a little background just on me. I am actually one of what I hear is a rare person, born in Georgia, who lives in Georgia. So I actually grew up in Atlanta and moved away in high school to Alaska. Did you know that, Mark?
No, I didn't. Not at all. Oh my God.
So I finished high school in North Pole, Alaska, at North Pole High School, and went to college in California and grad school in Southern California. So I've been around in different places, and my husband was in the Air Force, so we traveled all over. And with my master's degree in social work, I had all these options of what to do.
Oh my.
So I've done all kinds of things, including working in HR, law enforcement. I have done counseling and obviously working with people in all different ways, whether it was pregnant teenagers, homeless shelter, just lots of different things. And all of that experience kind of brought me to want to do my own thing. So when we moved here back to Georgia from all the different places that we live, I was like, I think I want to start my own business. What do I do?
Yeah.
So during my journey of what to do, I came across etiquette training because that's something that you don't see very much. No. Here in the South, people talk about cotillion and send their kids to cotillion and they learn how to dance and the proper way to eat and how to speak to adults and that sort of thing. So it's not too different from that. But really what I wanted to focus on was people in general, not just kids, but people in general, learning how to communicate with each other better so that we can all get along in society, whether we like each other, whether we agree with each other, whether we want to be around each other. Sometimes we still have to communicate with others. So how do we connect? And that's really what etiquette is, knowing what to expect when you're around other people and doing those things so that we can all be in the same spaces.
Yeah.
So I started Everyday Manners.
Awesome. And what a neat name for a business too. Just, very simple, everyday manners. Something that we oftentimes kind of overlook, I think. And I think all of us, whether we are young or old, we won't say which category we're in, okay? But whichever we are, right? We all could use some everyday manners, I think, along the way. Now, you and I mean, we kind of rub shoulders a lot, and you and I both are broadcasting from a very exotic location this week. As many of our listeners know, we've come from various places before for our college journey conversations, from New York City, from Chicago, up in Maine, and North Carolina, all these really cool places. And this week we're broadcasting from the exotic Peachtree City, right? Yeah, from right around the corner here in Georgia. You're a good friend right here locally. And we've kind of rubbed shoulders in business together too, and just working together and alongside one another with some students. And not only just with everyday manners, and we're going to circle back and talk more in depth about what that all entails. But we've also kind of rubbed shoulders in your involvement in an organization called AV Pride.
Yeah.
And I would love to hear a little bit about what that is all about, and so our audience can get to know a little bit about that too. So
Yes.
it's super interesting and super exciting too. So share a little bit with us about AV Pride. And
Okay.
let me kind of share, that's AV as in the letter A and the letter V,
Yeah.
and Pride. So
Yeah.
tell us a little bit about that.
Well, AV Pride is a 25-year organization that is a nonprofit in Fayette County, based in Fayette County. And we service mostly Fayette County, but we are branching out to Coweta County, Macon County, which is outside of Macon, and or surrounding areas. So we're not limited by our county. It is a nonprofit that it really stands for Association of Village Pride. So that helps people understand kind of what we do. It takes a village, right?
Yes.
To raise these children today,
Yes.
and always.
Yeah.
So we kind of lost that when people, are only concerned about their own kids.
Right.
But really our community is taking care of the kids. So part of what AV Pride does is look at our youth in our communities and find what is missing. Where are the gaps, and how can we help them fill those gaps? And not just with the youth, but their families as well.
Right.
So what I do specifically at AV Pride is work with the teenagers.
Oh, cool.
And that to me is the most fun group of youth, because they are on just the edge of becoming adults. And so they're not really kids anymore, but they're not really adults either. And they're like, well, how do I do this? What is life, and how do I fit into it? And
right.
We want to make sure that they have the skills that they need to cross over into adulthood, to make that transition as smooth as possible, because that's a difficult time. You remember those times.
Yeah, it was like yesterday.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I know. I remember very clearly those years, and even when I kind of think about our young people today and what they are having to go through and discover in just the environment that they're in, it's so different than yours or mine. And there's a lot more going on, I feel, and
there is,
and much bigger. I don't know, maybe it's not, but it feels like much bigger consequences. You're right.
Right. Yes.
In poor behavior or poor decisions. And so, so I get that. How many teenagers or young people do you actually work with at AV Pride? What kind of numbers are we looking at there?
We're between 20 and 25 students for last calendar year, which was a COVID year, which I thought was great for COVID, because we weren't able to actually meet face to face. So a lot of the things we did were virtual, which we had to figure out those things. And like I was saying earlier, technology is not my friend. So it's amazing that we are broadcasting now, because I'm involved.
Well, the good news is all you got to do is just be there. I'll take care of the rest for that. And I'm not sure I know what I'm doing, but it seems to at least work. It shows up when we leave, and that's what's important. Well, so
we service youth from 9th through 12th grade, but we're also incorporating middle schoolers now, because we're doing some prevention work as well with them. So we work on leadership development, life skills, exposing them to people and organizations in our community that can help guide them. And we're also giving them experiences. So whether that is going out in the world and trying new things, or volunteering, touring places, learning. We're doing a lot of career exploration. We did that via Zoom a lot last year, but we have more opportunities now that things are opening up. So it's really exciting to do all of those things. And now we're adding prevention into it. So it's prevention of suicide, prevention of drugs and alcohol addiction, those sorts of things. But also our kids chose to focus on mental wellness. So all of those things that feed into, having anxiety, depression, whatever that is that's feeding that, they want to make sure that people have somewhere to go, someone to talk to, some things to do, so that they don't fall into that spiral down. They're concerned about their peers, but they're also concerned about the adults, whether it's parents or teachers or other people, especially this past year. During COVID, people who were seemed to be doing okay had more reason to not be doing okay.
Right.
And I applaud them for taking that on. So we kind of included that and weaved it through all the things that we do at AB Pride as well.
That's fantastic. Now, as an example of what you mentioned, you said many members of the community or organizations or companies you bring in to kind of contribute to their learning, right, and discovery. And you actually asked me to be a part of that at one point. Tell our audience what we did, what I ended up sharing and what Capstone Educational Consultants ended up doing with some of your students, Margaret.
Yes. So again, with the high schoolers, they experience a lot of anxiety about what comes next. And it didn't matter whether they were freshmen, ninth graders, or seniors about to go to college, or juniors who are thinking about, do I really want to go to college? Like, where should I be? What should I be doing right now? Because high school, for some reason, is super competitive these days. And they experience so much anxiety about where they stand and what they should be involved in and the people they should be knowing and the activities they should be doing. And I needed you and Capstone to come in and say, breathe. Right. It's okay. You're going to be all right. Right. And give them an idea of the things that they should be thinking about. You know, should I be stressing about ACTs and SATs right now? What's the timeline for that? If I am a junior, where should I be? Should I be looking at colleges? Should I have already decided? Should I, stake my claim right now? Or can I still explore all those different things? Because we had the range, freshmen through seniors, you were able to go through each grade and say, typically this is what it looks like. If you're looking to go to a 4-year, then you should probably be doing this at this time and this at this time. And that was very refreshing for them to hear, because all they're hearing is from their peers or their parents with the pressure saying, you got to do this, you got to do this. And there are kids who are coming into high school and their peers or their other parents are saying, hey, if you don't go to, if you don't take 8 AP classes by the time you get out of high school, or if you don't take 4 years of language, if you don't, you're never going to get into this particular school. And the kids are like, ah. Right. And I spent, at least as a parent, I spent 4 years getting my children to breathe and stop and think and stop, leaning into all of that pressure and just kind of enjoy high school. Yeah. Can we do that? Can we actually get involved in things that we enjoy?
Right. We want to encourage them and get them into those things. The problem is they get distracted.
Yes.
And what they're faced with are so many noises and voices. Mm-hmm. And they really don't know exactly who they should be listening to or what they should be hearing.
Yes.
And oftentimes they retreat to what makes them feel most comfortable and retreat to that area in their own world that they find to be more safe.
Yes.
Students tend to go to technology for that because it's the one place they feel most involved and where they can be successful. Mm-hmm. And escape the things that are around them. Some people grab their bike and go to the park and ride it around and jump a couple ramps, right? Or get their skateboard and go down to that place where it says no skateboards and tear it up. So yeah, every student is trying to find their place, and that's a very difficult world for them to exist in. The voices and noises are loud and confusing. Yeah. To be able to identify, even the voices that they respect get confusing. Like yes. the voices from their parents, they mean well and they know well. Mixed with the voices they hear from school, the adults in those arenas, they also mean well. The voices from the nonprofit organizations like AB Pride that are exciting and definitely have their best interest in mind. They mean well, but sometimes they don't always sing the same song.
Right.
And they're not always, they all mean well, but even sometimes those messages get conflicting, and the kids have got to sort it out somehow.
Right.
And not that my voice should be louder than the parents or louder than the school administrators or teachers or the organizations, that my voice shouldn't be louder than them, but to be able to kind of grab those voices and make sense of them and put them in order so the kids can make good decisions and understand the meaning behind all of those messages for them is super important. So bringing people on board like you're suggesting and like you've done is a great resource for students to do that.
Yes.
Now, how would someone who might be interested in becoming one of those students at AV Pride, or a parent who might listen to this and say, hey, I'd like to get my kid involved in AV Pride, that sounds awesome. What would they do? How do they have to qualify, or do they have to fill out an application or show up for pizza and popcorn? What is it that they have to do? Do they have to prepare a song and dance and do an audition? What is it?
Yeah,
what do they need to do?
All of those things.
All of those things.
They do have to apply. So there is a process. We have a website, and it's just avpride.com. So nothing difficult. And they can click on the application from there, and that gets the process started. So we just find out basic information about who you are and what you're involved in, what you're looking to do. And then we start having a conversation.
Okay.
And see if it's a good fit, because it's not a good fit for everyone.
Right.
And every kid isn't necessarily a good fit for us.
Good point. And is there a fee involved? There
is a minor fee, and part of that is a commitment to the program, because we want to make sure that we have kids in the program who want to grow and make that a priority, because sometimes we get kids who are over involved in other things. So they may be in sports, and they may be in the arts, and they may be involved in church activities, and all of those are great, but we also need to be a priority. So will that work for you? And if it doesn't, then that's okay. Tell me what you can do. Tell me how involved you want to be. And, let's see if we can work something out.
Yeah.
But the fee is to make sure that you are putting your money where your mouth is.
Right.
And also so that we can run our program, as successfully as possible.
Right. I've also learned over time that it's great for students to have some type of invested interest.
Yes.
Right. When they get things, I hesitate saying for free, because it's not really for free, but when students receive things as an honorarium for something, right, they don't have to really invest anything monetarily into the program they're involved in. They definitely don't invest themselves into it as much.
Right.
So to have, my mom always used to say, I always reference my mom. I don't know why I do, but I always reference. She always used to talk to me about having skin in the game.
Yeah.
So you got to have some skin in the game, and that means you got to be able to put, as you said, money where your mouth is.
Yeah.
If you're going to talk it, you need to put some money there too.
Mm-hmm.
So that's really important. AV Pride, go check it out. avpride.com, great organization right here locally in Peachtree City, Georgia. In fact, I think they may have received some scholarship in the past from the Independent Educational Consultants Association, of which I'm a member of. Capstone Educational Consultants is a member of. So that's pretty exciting. I remember sitting at the conference. I wish I could remember which one it was, but it was several years ago. And of course, that's a national organization of which we're members of here. And that was an award, a gift that came from the Independent Educational Consultants Foundation.
Oh, wow.
Which is also a nonprofit they ended up giving to them. So that was pretty exciting to hear. So there is a connection there way around the circle, which is awesome. All right, let's shift some gears here, because while AV Pride is awesome and you spend quality time invested in that program and that organization, there's also everyday manners.
Yes, I have
And
my own baby.
yeah, that's your own baby, right? You know, we're like Capstone Educational Consultants is my baby, right? Everyday Manners is your own. And you also work with teenagers in that arena, but not exclusively. So what is the spectrum of people that you end up working with Everyday Manners? Tell us a little bit about that.
So everybody, no matter your age, could all use a little polishing. If you're a little rough around the edges, just smooth it out just a little, right?
Love
Um, so it's funny because people always come to me thinking about their kids.
right.
I have an 8-year-old. I'm really struggling with these things. We cannot go out to dinner with our 12-year-old because of these things. Or my son is about to start applying for college, and I don't think that he's life skill ready. I don't think that my daughter has the soft skills to start interviewing. All of those things come into play. But what's so interesting to me is that as people are talking to me about what they think their issues are, and I always like to do a consultation with the parent and the youth that they're talking about, so I
Yes.
can hear from the youth. And the youth actually have different things that they're concerned about that they would like to work on. The parents are always like, I think I could use that. I think we as a family could use that. So sometimes it turns into a family series or a session or a workshop or something like that, because people recognize that we could all use a little help to make sure that we're communicating well with other people, that we know what to expect when we go into certain situations. I had a mom come in with a daughter, a teenage daughter, saying, in a couple of years, she's going to get ready for college. And I want to make sure that she's doing the things now to prepare her for that. And so we started talking about specific skills, building confidence, making sure that she's speaking appropriately to her peers and to adults, because sometimes they get comfortable just talking to their peers. I'm like, you need to fix that too.
Yeah.
And the mom was like, I'm about to change career fields, and I want to make sure that I'm doing those things that you talked about properly. And I'm like, let's do a mother-daughter session,
Oh,
and so she sat in on all the sessions with her daughter, and we did it sort of like a team. And they played off of each other, and they were able to help each other because there's always homework, right?
Right. Always homework.
They were able to help each other and make sure that they were accountable to each other, and it actually went really well. And I'm seeing that a lot recently with more of the full family as opposed to just one person that I'm working with. The other thing is a lot of groups. So whether it is school groups or organizations or specific classes in schools that want to make sure that the young people are doing and saying and learning the things that they need to move to transition into adulthood, or organizations that work with youth. So maybe scouts or other community groups that are built around the young people.
Yeah.
And our gamut goes from dining etiquette to having conversations to networking to preparing to be independent people, so whatever that means to them, thinking about money, thinking about relationships, thinking about how to live without your parents right there. So I call that adulting.
Yeah, adulting. We could all use some adulting, even us adults. So.
Yes. So, and so I've actually been asked to come to some of our colleges and community colleges to speak to young people who are either starting their college journey or coming out, and even graduate students. They're like, I'm not sure I know how to do this. I'm like, it's okay. None of us really know what we're doing. So, and everything that we do with Everyday Manners is customizable. So I'm not just teaching random things that I think people need to know. I want to know where you think you're struggling. We'll have a conversation about some of the things that can be covered, and then we'll build the system, the curriculum, the series, the workshop, whatever it is that we're doing around those things.
Interesting. So everything is customized to the individual or group or family
Yes.
and very specific to their particular needs.
Yes.
Now, I found it fascinating that you had an opportunity, or you get opportunities to talk to high school students, of course, right? Because that's kind of, what I work with as well. As it relates to their soon to enter the college scene.
Mhm.
So what are some things that a high school student might be working on, or think about working on, or think about calling you to help them work on, even better,
Yes.
in preparation for hitting that college scene? Because, last year it was, this is funny because last year the etiquette model may have been, okay, do you know what Zoom is?
Right.
Right, that would be lesson number one, right? That was but this year's model is, do you remember people?
Right.
Right. And here they are, face to face. So that's huge, right? So what kind of things would you talk with those high schoolers about as they are getting ready?
Yes, the main thing is the anxiety around talking to people,
Mm,
how to communicate with others. Even pre-COVID, our young people tended to use their technology to communicate. And it just got worse because we were isolated. And if we had to do things, it usually was through technology.
mhm.
So now it's even harder. Eye contact is difficult. Um, it is hard for people to have a conversation because texting or social media is how we've been communicating. And now I actually have to like look at you, hear you, respond to you, and then maybe try to keep it going. And there's a start, there's a middle, there's an end. Oh,
Right, right. How do
it's
you
just
wrap this conversation up, right?
exactly. So those are the main things. And it's not just with, authority figures like administrators or counselors or, people who are looking to admit you to their college.
Right.
It's also with other people's parents. It's with your peers on a level that's more adult than what you've been used to. And people you don't know. There's a
Yeah.
lot of stranger anxiety in that age range. And it's not new. I mean, we went through that as well. But how do I approach somebody, or how do I start a conversation or even have small talk with somebody I don't know?
Right.
And we want to connect with people, not just because they can help us, but because that's what we do as human beings. So we need to feel a little bit more comfortable doing that. So building that confidence in yourself, talking about yourself, that's really hard to do, especially in a
Oh, that is
positive way.
that's one of the hardest things to get a teenager to do. Now, that's funny that I've I've segregated the teenagers from all the other age groups and how difficult it is to talk about yourself. But let's be fair, right? I mean,
Yes.
anybody, it's really hard to talk about yourself.
Yes.
Now, there are some who have no problem talking about themselves, and we try to they tend to take over the party, right? Whatever group
Yes.
they're in, they're always kind of overbearing, but they're more rare than norm.
Right.
And it's difficult when we're talking about college essays and we're having to write about ourselves and tell our own story.
Yes.
We tend to overlook some of the best aspects and characteristics and things that we encounter, and
Exactly.
go to the surface level,
Right.
digital version of ourselves. And there's not there's a lot more depth to us than just that.
That's
So
right.
to learn how to communicate that, I mean, how do you start a conversation with a stranger? I've always remember, like, back when I was a little kid, that we had stranger danger,
That's
right?
right.
Whenever we had someone new show up, and it was we were always told to get away from any stranger and not confront them and not speak to them. And now, as a teenager or an adult, we're like, you need to talk more to strangers.
Right.
Like,
Go up to that
no,
person, introduce yourself.
that's not what you told me to do. And so it's in direct conflict with many of the messages that we even listen to as young people. So it's very interesting communication is one of the keys to our society, and there are many forms of it, not just the verbal and nonverbal, but different methods of communicating. And students are really good at digital communication, especially in emojis, or or single letter like LOLs and BRBs.
Right.
And while they serve a purpose, I think it's funny because I used to get onto my nephew all the time for messaging me over text message, and he'd never capitalized a letter or used punctuation, and
Right.
it was just this one big run-on sentence with nothing. And I was quickly corrected that wasn't cool.
Right.
Like, wasn't cool? What do you mean it's not cool? How about like proper grammar,
I just
right?
want to understand what you're saying.
Right. And apparently it's not cool to be correct on text messages. So I stood corrected, right?
Yes.
But we're all, and they will be writing emails, writing letters, and not just the informal versions, but formal versions when they get a job opportunity, or get offered a job and they have to reply, or
Right.
So there's a lot of different very important ways to communicate, and the students, they're not necessarily taught how to do that.
Correct.
Right.
Right.
And that's kind of where you step in to help them
Yes.
kind of figure those out.
Yes.
The second thing that we were talking about is they lack confidence in, I guess, themselves and what they're truly capable of doing. And in some of my former episodes of College Journey Conversations, we talked about the many things that students are so capable of doing. They just don't believe in themselves enough to pull it off. But if they would, they could. And confidence is right up there with many of them. Yeah. Tell us a little bit about what you see with student confidence.
I think people in general, but our young people especially, do not look at themselves enough. We're always looking at what other people are or are doing or are saying, and we're not necessarily working on ourselves. So who am I? Who would I strive to be? What's the best me that I could bring out? And when you recognize that a lot of the things you're doing are already fabulous, then you move more through the world with more confidence. Right. So let's look at ourselves a little bit and see what are our strengths and what are our weaknesses that we can start working on. What are some things that we didn't even think about that, I think this quality is something that I like in other people. Do I have that in me? Right. Let's see. And then just start building those things. And once we get more comfortable, and that's one of the main things, when we get more comfortable with ourselves and our faults, right? And all the things that we are, then we can move through the world with confidence and talk to people with confidence and market ourselves, whether that's for work or school or in relationships, with confidence. And it's not putting little stickies on your mirror or, around your computer screen to remind you, you are great. It's actually, doing things.
Stop talking about me, Margaret. Just kidding.
It's doing things that build your confidence, right? It's the actions that you're doing. So whether that's volunteering or, studying really hard or, being more responsible at home, those things build your confidence. And you're like, yeah, I can do that. Sure. I can say that. Sure. I've never done that before, but let me try it. And that is what's going to keep you moving forward.
Right. Having confidence, I always see as having confidence is your willingness to fail.
Yes.
Right. Like, I'm going for this, even if I fail, it doesn't matter. And because failure is like it's not pretty sometimes, and it doesn't necessarily always feel great, but it definitely builds. It builds confidence, builds character, it builds so many different qualities in us that it's worth it, even though it doesn't always feel real pretty. And having that confidence to just go for it, regardless of the outcome, is super important. I wish our young people, there would be more of them that would stand up and say, you know what, I'm gonna be whatever that is, or I'm gonna do whatever that is. Even if it, you know, if it looks horrible 10 days from now, I still gave it my best shot and went at it with all confidence. Success comes with the confidence of winning, and you've got to be willing to fail even in win. You know, I'm sure someone who's planning on running a race never thinks about tripping. But when they do, they're always taught to get back up and keep running. And so they don't prepare to trip. They just know what to do when it happens. And it's not to focus on the trip and walk off the track, but it's to keep running. And we all can learn from that and learn from that confidence in the things that we do. And you know, failure tends to like really take the wind out of your sail. I mean, I'm an example. You're an example. I'm sure there's many things that you could list for yourself, even that we've really set out to accomplish or do. We've taken those risks. We've been vulnerable with ourselves and others, and it hasn't looked so pretty.
What are you talking about, Mark?
I don't know. Well, I'm not talking about you, but I'm just assuming that we're in the same boat, right?
We are totally in the same boat.
Right, the vast majority of us we really are. If we were honest with ourselves, we really are. And we could all use a bit more confidence. We could all use a bit more belief in ourselves. I think if we would spend some more time looking in the mirror at those post notes, right, of life. They might not be physical post notes, but even the imaginary ones that tell us that we have what it takes, whatever that is. And we could choose to move mountains if we wanted to pick up one rock at a time. That mountain would get moved. And so we all have it, and teaching the kids and young people and adults about having more confidence is huge, right? And then there's courtesy. We talked about being more courteous. And it's funny, you mentioned something earlier in the show, and it made me think. I didn't say it then because you were in a good thought, so I didn't want to interrupt it. But you said something that made me think, man, it would be great if we had some kind of courteous card where, like, if we saw, like, how many of us are really out at a restaurant, you know, having dinner, and we look over and we're like, okay, that kid needs a courteous card. And if I just had what I could leave on the desk for them, or like hand to their parents or something. So much rudeness in the world.
Yes, it's so sad. And that's one of the reasons why I do what I do, because there used to be something called common courtesy. And
what's that?
And it stems from us thinking outside of ourselves, right? So I have to care about people outside of me in order to be courteous. And that means the basic things that we might think of: holding the door open for somebody, or helping somebody with their groceries, saying thank you when somebody does something for you, just those common courtesies. But you can do that everywhere all the time, right? If we're not so focused, even though I just started talking about building confidence and looking at yourself, but if you're not so focused on your movement, right, and you're looking at the world, let's say, or your community or your family, and you are looking at other people and how you can contribute to their well-being, then we're all going to move. It's not just me. I'm winning. It's all about me. It's about us. We're all doing well. It's really not a competition, right? We're all in this together. So how can I be as helpful and respectful and kind and useful in society as possible? That's what courtesy is.
I have found I don't know if I'm going to be able to explain this well, but I'm going to try. My communication may not be well tonight for this, but I'm going to try. But I found that walking into a restaurant, and Chick-fil-A is always my example. Why is that? We live in the South, right? And there's 6 of them in our town, right? Maybe 7.
Right.
I don't know. But if you walk in and there's a double door entry where you have to walk in and then walk, there's a little lobby, and then you walk into another door. Oh my gosh, I have learned that being courteous pays for itself in that lobby. And this is how I've done it. It's so funny. Like when you approach the front door and there's someone, stranger danger, right? A stranger that you have like walking with you. And if you choose to be courteous at the front door,
Right.
and hold the door for them,
Yes.
they will by nature, even if they're mean people, even if they're mean people, I don't even know if they're mean or not, but I suspect that even if they are mean people, they will open the next door for you. Mm-hmm. And do you know who gets in line first at Chick-fil-A when that happens?
Who's that?
You do.
Because you got the second door open for you.
You got it. You got in line first. But see, here's what's funny about this, as I've kind of observed this, and I might be a crazy person for just like thinking this moment in my life way too deeply. But I found that if you choose to be courteous first, which is not always what we are inclined to do, we always approach the first door thinking, they should open that for me. And you know what? Maybe that's true. And maybe they should. And maybe they do. And that would be great, because then you get a chance to open it for them. But if you choose to be courteous first, you will be in line first. And I was like, wow, that happens like that every time.
Yes.
It's like the nature of double door entry. Gives you the chance to be first in line by choosing to be courteous first.
So now we have to go to Chick-fil-A and just sit there and watch and see how often that happens.
It'll happen almost every time.
Every time.
So, like I rush to the door first when like I'm walking with a stranger. I'm like, oh no. I've got the first door.
Let me get this.
That is when I'm in a hurry, because I always think like, man, if I open the door, then they're going to get in front of me first, because it's all about who's first. 8
orders, and they're all separate.
Right. And if it's a group of like 4 people, you can be dang skippy. I'm going to be like opening that door first, because that's a whole group of people I'm going to get in front of. That's right. Awesome. Maybe. And even if I didn't, it would be okay.
Because it feels good when you do that.
It feels good. It feels good. And it's the right thing to do, right? Being courteous, that's part of the manners, right? Yeah. That we're talking everyday manners. I mean, that's the essence of when we hear the word manners, that's what we're thinking about. What we're thinking. What does that look like out in the world, not just in your own little living room, right? Right. What do manners look like? I always think about the yes, ma'am, no, ma'am, yes, sir, no, sir. Those are all moments of being courteous as well. There's another term that you use to describe this. I think you had mentioned it in one of our earlier discussions prior to going live, the word cure. Yes. And it stands for something. And I think it kind of encapsulates all this. So what does that cure? What does that stand for?
It is compassion.
Okay.
Understanding,
good,
respect for everyone.
Oh, I like that.
Yes.
Compassion, understanding, respect for everyone.
Yes.
And if you do that, you've got the cure.
Yes.
Is that the point? Am I saying the point?
It cures everything.
Cured everything. Mm-hmm. That's a great way to bring this to a close, because I think we all need to find the cure to a lot of stuff, right?
Yes.
But having that compassion. Oh, I can't even remember what it was now. What was it? Compassion, understanding, and respect for everyone. Yes. That's it.
For everyone.
It's a good word.
It is.
Margaret, you do good work.
Thank you. I'm trying. I'm working on myself. So as I work on myself, I try to help others work on themselves as well.
Well, I always look at it as a cup that overflows and messes up everybody else around you, right?
That's
So
right.
there's no sense in being a neat freak with yourself. You gotta invest in yourself enough that it just pours over into the lives of everyone around you, and that's really what life should be all about, I think.
Yes.
There's an old song in Sunday school that we used to say, uh, this little light of mine, hide it under a bushel. No, we don't need to hide those great things about ourselves. And even when we don't think they're very great, they are. And somebody around you needs them, and that's always good to be mindful that you are not the only person in the world, and
That's
you
right.
contribute significantly to everyone that you come in touch with every single day for some reason. You do good work, Margaret. I am so glad and honored to be your friend and colleague in arms here in the Peachtree City, Fayette County, Georgia area.
Thank you, Mark.
It's so good to have you. Now, if somebody listening to this says, oh my gosh, I need to find that cure myself, or this one's my favorite, or my husband needs to find that cure.
That's right. I hear that a lot.
Or my wife needs to find that cure, right? Or maybe just my kids could use a little sharpening up, or maybe they've got someone going off to college that could use some tips from Everyday Manners. How would they go about finding and getting in touch with you?
Yes. So I'm supposed to say, you can reach me on social media and I'm there, but I'm not.
That's okay.
But I do have a website. And
okay, that's perfect.
myeverydaymanners.com.
Okay, so not just Everyday Manners, but it's myeverydaymanners.com.
Correct. Yes.
Okay. That's great. And if you needed to reach her as well and couldn't find her on the website, you're more than welcome to reach out to me, and I would be more than happy to share your information with her and get you in touch with her. It has always been a pleasure talking with you, Margaret.
Yes.
Either via Zoom or in person, it doesn't matter. We're always so excited to be in the same room together. And
we are. This is always fun.
It makes everybody's life so much better, I think. We're overjoyed with confidence tonight. Right. We're so excited. Thank you again so much. It was a joy having you tonight here on this episode of College Journey Conversations. Thank you all for joining us, and we hope you come back and listen to another one in the weeks to come. Thank you so much. Have a good night.
Thank you.